Welcome back to Why Is This a Podcast? No country at the moment, I think, has highlighted the raw tragedy of the COVID-19 pandemic than India. And for that reason, I'm very, very lucky, and so are you, to be joined by a communication specialist and former journalist, Iknoor Kaur. She joins me now from India. Hello, Iknoor.
Hi,
Thanks for being here.
I'm very excited to be here.
I wanted to have you on for a while.
Absolutely. I have been very offended about the fact that you have not had me on your show so far. But I'm very happy that I'm finally here. I feel extremely privileged.
You want to say, you want to sort of delay it, don't you? You want to,
Yeah,
delay you want to
it's
build it.
worth the wait. It's worth the wait, right?
Exactly. I mean, with Lady Gaga not cancelled, you wouldn't have
Well,
been on today. But there you go.
well.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I am safe in the confines of my home, and I think like all my loved ones are safe, which is really, which is like a blessing right now. The last 1 month has been extremely difficult, I think, for every single person in India. But I mean, at this particular moment, I think things have eased slightly, and at least like my near and dear ones are safe. They're vaccinated. They're at home. We're not meeting anybody. We're not going out. We're back to what I think 2020 was, and like even more stringent in that case. Personally, like even though there might not be a full-fledged imposed lockdown, we're still sitting at home on our own because we can see what's happening out there, and it's a very scary situation. So everybody's just taking those precautions to kind of stay safe. So that's basically the update from here right now.
Because you've got, of course, the emergence of B.1.1.167, I think, is
Yeah, that's the variant. Yeah.
the variant that emerged in India. And you've also got like this very, very concerning this black fungus as well.
Yeah, that's something
Mercur-
that's just taken.
Mercuriosis, I think, is the
Yeah,
technical
yeah, yeah,
term, which is obviously
yeah. There are more and more cases of that kind of popping up right now, and I think there's just not enough information about it out there. So we try, like whatever is out there, I mean, I can see that it's being amplified and like people are being told about it. But I feel like it's still something that's largely, something that people don't yet know enough about, and people, it's scary. In general.
yeah. No, without question, and heart sort of my heart goes out to you and to your country, men and women, and I hope that the end is in sight soon.
Really hope so. Really hope so. Really. I mean, we have this saying in Hindi that we say, uh, like you should have something sweet in your mouth when you say something nice. So I want to say that to you right now, that like all the sweet things in this world are in your mouth right now, because what you're saying should absolutely happen.
Well, you mentioned sort of about the people not talking enough about black fungus and whatnot, and I want to come back to, obviously, I mentioned you're a communication specialist, a former journalist. Um, I want to sort of touch on the role of communications and journalism in a crisis like this, a crisis of this magnitude. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's absolutely essential. And I think somewhere we've kind of faltered as well in that case, right? And when it comes to not just the virus itself, awareness about the virus in terms of like what you need to do if you're at home and you don't need hospitalization. I don't think there was just enough being put out. I think at some point, especially with the second wave, what ended up happening was that the symptoms changed. uh, there were more symptoms first of all, and then it came in phases. Like we had like these three phases of like how the virus kind of took over your body, and like initially when you kind of get infected and you start showing symptoms, and the middle phase, which is the most serious, and then the recovery phase, and how to deal with each of those phases and what they look like, and when do you really need to get to the hospital, or when do you really need kind of intervention and all of that stuff. This is information that we've come to know through like our own personal contacts, like people whom we know, like doctors we know that we've spoken to and we come to know. And then there have been like, there's been a barrage of WhatsApp forwards kind of giving out that information. This is information that should have actually come as a part of a very, like strategic communications campaign that was led by the government. And communications is the key right now for avoiding panic, for ensuring that people get the right care at the right time. And also for kind of now we're moving into our immunization drive to kind of ensure that there is no vaccine hesitancy, to make sure that people are going out there, getting vaccines, and also to kind of give them access to that, right? Like how am I supposed to go get a vaccine? I mean, the lady who comes to my house to cook, I told her that she needs to get a vaccine, and she had no idea, first of all, how to go about the process. Two, she was extremely scared because somebody in her village ended up getting a vaccine and died. And now there's this, the only thing that every single person in her village believes is that if you get the vaccine, you'll get the virus and die. So there is an extreme lack of information, and there is no communication campaign to kind of fix that at the moment. So of course, communication plays a very important role, because if there was a proper campaign in place, if communication was reaching the grassroots level or anywhere for that matter, people would know why a vaccine is important. People would know what the virus looks like. People would know what symptoms mean. So of course, there is a communication campaign to wear masks, but what next? Like you're wearing a mask and you're protecting yourself, that's great. And the government is, I think, done a fantastic job to get people to wear their masks. But what after that? What if one actually gets infected? Then what? There is not enough communication out there for that. So of course, it's extremely important. And I mean, we as individuals on our level are trying to do that. So like I sat with my maid, with my house help, and I kind of spoke to her, and I was like, like this is what you need to do, and give me your identification. I'll file your form. And I did that, and I kind of registered her, and I filled out the forms, and I got her vaccinated the other day. But the problem is that why, like I was there to do that for her. How many people actually have employers who are willing to go out of their way and get their house help vaccinated? Very few, and that's just really sad, because what is that? And they're quite a majority of our population, right? What are we going to do with people from low income backgrounds, people who are illiterate, people who do not have access to internet? How are they going to get vaccinated? And that it's not like they can't, they can. It's just that they don't know, because there is hardly any information out there. So in that case, when you build a communications campaign, you need to kind of build it in a way that it reaches the grassroots. It puts out the key points that people need to know out there. And I mean, communications at the end of the day plays the most important role in managing any kind of crisis. It doesn't have to be a health crisis. It doesn't have to be a pandemic. Any crisis in the world, and I think communications just plays a very, very important.
I mean, it's clarity, I think, is the
just
key.
Knowledge. I think just awareness. Awareness, I think, is the key word here. Just knowing, like, what I mean, we honestly come from a place of privilege, right? Just knowing, like, who would have ever imagined that just knowing what the virus is, what the symptoms are, why getting vaccinated is important. Just knowing that at this point of time is a privilege.
I know, and that's an interesting way to frame that question. I mean, what we've got in the UK is sort of a sense of mixed messaging, with both Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the First Ministers. So Mark Drakeford in Wales, where I am, and Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland. what we have is sort of this sense of mixed messaging, and the consensus from people is we have absolutely no idea. What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to go out? Are we supposed to stay indoors? And so you're absolutely right about communications being vital, and also countering misinformation. It's incredibly important. Um, I want to go because part of the COVID situation in India that's so harrowing is that the lack of access to equipment, to oxygen, for example, is one example. Oxygen is one example, but it has led to a kind of a silver lining where communities are coming together, and I know that you've been involved there. So I was just wondering if you could shed some light on that.
Absolutely. When you say that there has been a sort of silver lining, I think the silver lining is that people, irrespective of everything, irrespective of all the things that might at some point divide us, people have come together. And the entire pandemic united us in a way that I don't think any of us even imagined. We didn't know who we were helping. We didn't know who was helping us, but everybody helped everybody, at least over the last 1 month, and still continue to do so. And I think that's still going on. And Twitter, I think as a platform in general, just came out, like just emerged as this unifier, like one request on Twitter, and you had like 100 people kind of reach out to you, and like you're getting calls from people, or you're like people are DMing you and like asking you, okay, give me details of the patient, and I'm gonna arrange this. And like in my case as well, like one of my grandmother's sister was extremely sick, and I needed oxygen. And so the last ones before that, I had been helping people find oxygen. I had been calling up every single number on these long lists of resources that were being shared on WhatsApp and on Twitter and everywhere. I was calling up those numbers because a lot of those numbers, I mean, while when they were put on the list, they might have had oxygen. By the time you call them, they really don't. And a lot of families ended up wasting like 4 5 hours, just calling up numbers to get oxygen. So what I was doing was, and like what a lot of other people were doing, was that they were just kind of calling those numbers and verifying whether they have oxygen or not, or just verifying whether this number even works. And whatever got verified, we kind of put that out and said, okay, verified at this time on this date, and this is what he has available, or this is what she has available, and kind of put that out. And that really helped people kind of save time and call the right person, get access to that resource at that point of time. And I had been doing that for 3 weeks, and it was already like really heavy. And then my own family member gets affected, right? And then I'm like, damn, like my own family needs oxygen, and I can't get oxygen. And it was devastating because I'm like, I have helped so many people over the last 3 weeks get oxygen. And when it comes to my own family, I'm not able to find any. And I was just, I was desperate, and I was putting out requests out, like I'm just tweeting, and I was sending messages to people I knew who had been volunteering. And the kind of overwhelming support I got, I was just amazed. These are people who don't know me. These are people who I have never spoken to in my life, and I don't know if I ever will again. But these are just like people who were out there, who were looking at SOS calls and were just responding. And I managed to get not one, but two oxygen cylinders for my grandmom. Unfortunately, she passed away irrespective.
Sorry to hear that.
But getting that help kind of made her like be comfortable, at that time. She didn't suffer. And I think I owe that to every single person that responded to my query, right? So everybody's come together. I have so many friends. I have a cousin who drives ambulances every night after his work ends. And he does that because he's like, whatever we can do, let's do it. And I know that I wasn't stepping out because I was worried about infecting my parents whenever I go meet them. So I was like, I don't want to I don't want to kind of expose myself, so I can't go meet them. So I wasn't stepping out of the house, but I was like, okay, what else can I do? Because there's a sense of vicarious grief because everybody's going through a situation that is extremely tense. It's upsetting. It's sad, and you want to do something to help. So I was like, I don't know what else I can do. So let me do this. Like, let me call numbers, let me verify, let me help people get access to oxygen. And I think that's what a lot other people were doing as well. And that's how I got help when I needed it. So I think it's just beautiful how everybody's just come together to help each other. It's also really sad though, and I must point out over here, because this is not our job. It's not the citizen's job to do this, you know? It's not our job to constantly make calls and check whether there's oxygen available. It's not our job to hustle for beds and ICU beds and find out which hospital has space to accommodate a patient. And it's definitely not our job to go running from shop to shop finding a medicine. Our job is to pay our taxes, to be responsible citizens. It is the government's job to make sure that they provide us these resources. And they failed because for at least 2 to 3 weeks, there was nothing. Our government was missing. We had nowhere to go to. The hospitals were full. Hospitals didn't have oxygen. I mean, what are you going to do? You want to send, there was this one thing that used to give us a sense of security, and that was the fact that if any of our loved ones fell sick, we could rush them to the emergency of a hospital and they'd be looked after. There was no emergency to take our patients to. Where do you take them? There is no emergency. Hospitals were full. Hospitals didn't have oxygen. There were no medicines available. It was a nightmare, and it was terrible. And really, like, it was not our job to help each other and get oxygen. It's great that we've done all of this right now, but really, is it any of our job to call up oxygen suppliers and say, do you have oxygen? Do we even know how to operate an oxygen tank? But everybody learned during this time.
When you say that, it's sort of, there were two instances during the pandemic. The one was Marcus Rashford, a football player, who urged the UK government to extend free school meals to vulnerable children. I think during the break, which I think succeeded, and the other was Sir Captain Tom Moore, who's sadly passed away since, who raised a lot of money for the National Health Service. And I had sort of a very similar reaction to you there, where it's amazing that they've done this, but it's not a glowing reflection on the government that they had to do it.
Exactly.
So I think, I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I think that if we get anything out of the pandemic, there isn't just mere despair and anger and trauma and grief.
I honestly, Kilian, I don't know how we're going to heal from this.
I hope it leads to accountability. That's what I hope.
I don't know. There is so much grief around that it's kind of led to a sense of numbness, and that's sad. And I really don't know how we're going to recover from this mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. Like, people just have lost faith in anything because they have seen. I know people who have lost their entire family in a matter of days, and it's gut wrenching to hear their stories because they could not even meet them. They could not even meet their parents or their relatives because they themselves were infected. They could not go for they could not do their last rites. They could not cremate them. And that, I really don't know how we're going to be able to get over. How are we even expected to recover from something like that? It is definitely a once in a lifetime experience, and it's going to build an entire generation that has grown up watching something that is as devastating as this.
It's not going to be an easy road out. That's
Not at all.
for certain. Well, Iknoor, it's been lovely to have you on.
Well, it's been great to be on, and I know that, it's just so sad that the current situation is such that we end up talking about these things that are not always very, very cheery and happy. But then I think they're also kind of important to talk about sometimes.
It's important, but it's important to talk about it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what I find myself doing, what I find myself reminding myself when I look at the daily numbers of new deaths, be it in India or in the UK or the United States or Brazil or Mexico, is that those numbers are people. Those people have.
They're not just stats. They're not just statistics.
They are people, and there are, and for many of them, for too many of them,
Yeah.
it was avoidable. So
Absolutely.
and I think it is important, hard as it is, and it is hard, but you got to push yourself to just remember that, because without that we won't have change. I mean, the National Health Service in the UK was under-resourced before COVID. I don't think COVID has taught us anything new. It's been a reminder.
Absolutely. A lot of people say the health infrastructure crumbled and etc. And I'm like, no, it just got exposed. It was always like this. It just got, and we've been saying for years now that we need to increase our healthcare budget. We need to invest more in healthcare, and like we've been talking about this for so long. It's only now because of COVID that people are really talking about it. Right? But I think also while amidst all of this grief and all of this sadness, I think what is another thing that is really like heartwarming. And I think that's also equally important to highlight is how a lot of people have been extremely supportive through this time. This has been a time that, I mean, now it's been over a year we've been working from home. And I know a lot of corporates, at least, have come out in absolute support of the current situation to support their employees, to ensure that people are well taken care of. There is so much of mental health awareness today that was not there earlier. And I think all of that is extremely heartwarming as well. I mean, a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have imagined corporates so openly talking about mental health and wellness programs and kind of integrating them in their systems, right? Today, all of them are doing that. And I think that is just so nice to just see around you. And even like people I know within the industry from other companies, from other firms, they're all telling us about how their companies have been extremely supportive about, cutting down on their work hours, just kind of taking it easy at work, being there with their families, just kind of being extremely supportive for people who've been affected by COVID. And in that whole, dog eat dog world that we have always kind of learned to grow up in and come, kind of fight our way through, that's just really nice to see.
Agreed. Before I let you go, I know you want to talk about it. Did you watch the Friends reunion?
Of course! I watched it the minute it is out. Have you, though?
No, I haven't. What did you think?
I thought, that's a difficult question. So I definitely watched it the moment it was out. Like I was watching it live. And I hate to admit, but I have to. I was bawling for the first 5 minutes. It was just so many memories. And like just watching all of them back on screen was great. And I was a little emotional. But I mean, it was nice. It was a little long. So at some point, of course, you're watching it. It was really fun or whatever. But it was kind of fun in the sense that it was very like nostalgic, and you remembered a few episodes that you watched with friends. Like that's what I kept thinking about, like me watching Friends with my friends. And I was just like, like remembering those moments. I was like, yeah, like this particular episode helped me, like when I was in a really bad or shitty mood at that particular time or whatever. And that was just really nice. It was fun.
What did you think of James Corden?
No, because every time I look at him, I can only remember Gavin and Stacey for some reason. And I it was really odd that he was interviewing the friend's cast.
The Twitterati were not very happy that he was involved.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw any of the tweets about it, but
I saw few.
one person wrote, "I wouldn't even invite James Corden to a Gavin and Stacey reunion."
Oh, oh, poor guy. But really, so the moment I saw him, I was like, oh my God, Gavin and Stacey. So it's like you get a character from another iconic show to like interview the cast of an iconic show. And you're like, what is happening?
Oh, Iknoor, it's been absolutely lovely to talk to you. Thanks so much for being here.
It's been great to talk to you too, Kiran. I hope I didn't bore you at
Oh, of course.
all. But this was an absolutely fun conversation, and so glad that that you thought that I deserve to be on your podcast.
Of course you did. So, Iknoor Kaur, a food journalist and communications specialist, thank you so much. From Why Is This a Podcast? I'm Kieran Watts. I'm the host of the show. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next episode.